Thank you for that introduction. I'd also like to thank GFN for the opportunity to present my research today. This is a new project for BAT. We just presented the protocol at a conference in November last year. So I'm really pleased to be here to present the results today. The question I most get asked after presenting this is awesome. How long do you get to spend in Japan to do this study, or how often do you get to visit Japan? And the answer is not at all. I'm desk-based in Southampton, but I've got a fantastic team here from Kantar Health Division in Munich and Japan, and they're here with me today in the front row. So a cross-sectional survey to assess tobacco and nicotine product use behavior in Japan. I'm going to talk about harm reduction, potentially reduced risk product assessment framework, population studies that we're conducting, research and development at BAT, the objectives of this study, approach that we took for the pilot study, so these are the results of the pilot study today, summary and next steps. So we present here our risk continuum. It's very well known to us all. And this shows a diversity of products that we have at BAT that offer consumers a choice of nicotine and tobacco products in various markets. So we have conventional cigarettes or combustible cigarettes at the high toxicant end of the spectrum, nicotine replacement therapy at the low end of the spectrum. And it's widely accepted that the harm associated with smoking is caused by inhaling those products of combustion. And as we go through, we're going to see some of the results of tobacco heating product use behavior in Japan. So why do we conduct population studies? I took an excerpt from the US FDA Modified Risk Tobacco Product Application, and I quote, "Each applicant who receives a risk modification or exposure modification order must conduct post-market surveillance." So although this is from the FDA, we are aware that other regulatory authorities would have similar requests. And so you can see here, and I've taken this list directly from their draft MRTPA guidelines. We can conduct observational epidemiological studies, cross-sectional surveys, which this is the study I'm presenting today. Consumer perception, perceived risk. This portion is also part of our study. Actual use studies, so likelihood of uptake. Product misuse is also a component of what we're looking at here. Initiation among non-users, and also longitudinal and cohort studies, which this is not part of this cross-sectional survey today. And so I present here BAT R&D's PRRP assessment framework. And we range from product assessment at the bottom right up to preclinical, clinical assessment in green, and population studies at the top. And so the studies from about 1 to 8 are demonstrating individual risk reduction, and 9 and 10 are looking at overall public health benefit and seeing how the products operate once in the market and in real life use. So, an overview of the study. The objectives were to describe prevalence rates, use patterns of tobacco and nicotine-containing products. We investigated risk perception and health status. In the interest of time, I'm not presenting, unfortunately, anything to do with risk perception and health status here. Each alone could probably be a 10-minute presentation or more. So in the interest of time, just sharing the demographic information today and use behaviors. So this is an epidemiological survey, and we had ethical approval before conducting the study. Geographically stratified 3-stage probability sampling. So we have a main sample, sampled through the population. We have a booster sample of a group of special interest to us, 20 to 24-year-olds, and then a backup sample. 20 to 24-year-olds are special interest because regulatory authorities also say that maybe we have to look at these groups and that this could be potential entry into these new products, but we'll show some data later about the age groups that are using THPs in Japan. This pilot wave was implemented to test the approach before we went nationwide this year. So we had 4,154 participants, 4,000 from the main sample, 150 from the booster sample of the 20 to 24-year-olds, and the extra 4 as backup. So this infographic is just giving you an overview of the methodology. I'm not going to talk a huge amount about it. It is published, so you can find that in your own time. But it is a paper-based survey, 142 questions split across 4 main domains. So socio-demographic information, tobacco and nicotine product use history, including aspects of tobacco heating product misuse, quality of life and risk perception. Ethical approval was sought. It takes about 25 minutes to complete, depending on your use history, and participants are rewarded 1,000 yen for their time. Okay, so all of the results you're seeing here today are, again, from the pilot study conducted in 3 areas of Japan: Tokyo, Osaka, Sendai. Tokyo and Osaka are 2 metropolitan areas in Japan. Sendai was selected as it was the launch city of GLOW. It made sense for us to look at the pilot study there in the hope that we would be able to select GLOW users, and we were successful in this endeavor. All data are weighted and rounded to full significant figures. So if we look at tobacco nicotine use status, so all products containing tobacco nicotine, highest prevalence, is never users. And then we have 19% of current tobacco users. So we're going to have a look into this section right now. And as you might expect within current use behavior, highest prevalence is of cigarette or roll your own products. And we were very happy that we were able to also select around 5% prevalence of tobacco heating product users. We'll show some more specific data around THPs in the following slides. But if we look at the use of our cigarette or roll your own users, vast majority have been smoking for over 10 years. Highest prevalence of use is from the low tar delivery products, so 1 to 3 milligram. And we use the heaviness of smoking index, and the highest prevalence is at the bottom. It's medium dependency. So please don't read this as low, medium, high. It's medium, low, high. It's going in the order of prevalence. A very small percentage of very high dependent nicotine users tended to be within the demographic of males over the age of 40. So behaviors and quitting attempts. We asked our participants who were smokers to consider quit attempts on the contemplation ladder. So 0 meaning no thoughts of quitting, up to 10 taking action to quit. And here are the results. And the first observation to make, which is very typical of kind of graphical questions, is that you get clustering of responses around labels. So it's quite nice to see this as a kind of proof of concept that, yes, people will tend to pick there, not thinking that they can pick the rungs in between. But the highest prevalence there, quite on the low end, I think I need to consider quitting, but someday. So that's over a quarter, and then another quarter, no thoughts of quitting. So around half of the population who are consuming tobacco products down in that lower end. And then these next 3 charts, again, are looking at, have you ever tried to quit? Over a half have tried to quit. What was your last, when was your last quit attempt? So more than 12 months ago. And longest attempt, less than a week. I know that the labels there are small, but this presentation will be available on our science website, and that you'll be able to look at it in high definition and see all of those numbers in there. So THP use characteristics. As I said, we were very pleased to be able to sample users amongst the 3 major THPs in the Japanese market, vast majority being IQOS, followed by Glow and Plume Tech. But it's important to note that this includes multiple product use type behaviors. So that might mean a THP user using more than one type, more than one brand, or it might mean that someone's using a THP in conjunction with another type of tobacco or nicotine product. And we asked consumers who were THP users, why do you use THPs? And they could multiply select from 18 reasons, or give their own verbatim. And we present here the top 5. So no tar, don't smell bad, and have no ash. And then the top 2 being maybe less harmful to me, and the highest prevalence maybe less harmful to others. I thought this was quite a nice observation. It's this high consideration for others before self, at least in Japanese culture. And here, THP users by age. So this is a distribution, again, very small, but you can look at it again offline. So from 20-year-old here to 80-year-old here. And we can see that the highest prevalence of THP use is actually in the age range 25 to 49 years old. And in fact, that this 20 to 24, this this group that we oversampled as interest are not consuming the products as maybe people think. So the key findings. During this pilot study, there were no adverse events related to glow use or product complaints related to glow. These were in scope of our study as they are our product at BAT. 95% THP users originated from a previous status of tobacco use, which we think is a very positive sign. So that means that 5% did not. But to put that into context, the uptake of never users into combustible products was 0.2%, and the uptake of never users into THP was 0.1%. And then we see three major or main behaviors, which is solace or just smoking cigarettes or roll your own, just consuming tobacco heating products, or dual use, using cigarettes and THPs together. And so in the bold, we have the percentages in terms of the whole population of the sample, and in the lighter color underneath in brackets is the percentage as amongst tobacco consumers. So 13% solace tobacco use, 3% solace THP use, 2% dual THP and cigarette use or roll your own. So a combination of 5% THP use. 32% were the number of tobacco users who completely switched from cigarettes to solace THP. So again, we think this is a really positive message or a really positive outcome that we're seeing in Japan. And finally, another two really key findings. We saw no gateway effect or switchback effect. So gateway effect would be looking at the 5% here that came from a never status. Did they, within a 12-month period, then transition away from THP use to dual use or to solace cigarette use? And we saw no evidence of that in this pilot study. And switchback would be this group here, the 32% that transitioned away from cigarette smoking to solace THP use. Did we see any evidence of them relapsing back into combustible tobacco use? And again, in this case, in the 3-center pilot study, we did not see that. So, next steps for this year. We had our nationwide study commence in February 2019. Taking the learnings from the pilot study, we made some adaptations. So for risk perception, which I wasn't able to show here, but hope to show in the future, or certainly publish this data, we introduced a visual infographic stimulus of glow messaging that's already in the market in Japan. And we've split this between 50% of the participants have this and 50% don't. So we have a big sample size to see how risk perception is affected by messaging that's currently in the market. In the quality of life and health effects, again, which I didn't present, we saw some early interesting signs on what we might start to see as improvements from people who quit smoking. So going from a dualist type behavior with cigarette and THP, going to solace THP use. And it's looking at things like smell, taste. So this is personal self-reported improvements, switching to solace THP use, stains on teeth, bad breath, poor gum health, eye irritation. So again, I hope to show that later. And for anyone that has an interest in these types of scientific claims, my colleague Annette will be presenting in the PM session, specifically on our tests that we've been doing around this interesting area. So as I said, the fieldwork commenced for nationwide. We upped the sample size, 5,300. 5,000 for main sample, 300 was a booster sample for not only 20 to 24-year-olds, but 25 to 29, because we felt maybe from the pilot that they also may have been slightly underrepresented. And for those of you that were in the modeling workshop on the first day, which I thought was a really good session, and they were talking about where did the data come from to drive the model. Well, in our case, at BAT, the data from the cross-sectional survey will feed our model that's also published. So this is Oscar Camacho and Andy Hill's method there. And the protocol has been published, and we have published also the full survey and questionnaire in English. So that's freely available for anyone that would like to go and see how we've conducted this study. So, as you can imagine, a massive team of subject matter experts working on this together from many different countries. So a big thanks to the Kantar team who are really driving this here today. So if you have any questions specifically about how we conduct such studies you're in no better hands to have all the subject matter experts. So Claudia here from Munich, and Hide and Asako and Yunga from Tokyo. And then also I have a great team here of BAT colleagues from America and Japan, thank you. And Sol from Penny as well. I like to include that picture there of Southampton. So our R&D center is in Southampton, and this is the marina right near there. And I like to include it to show that there are blue skies once in a while in the UK. So thank you for your time. You've heard Chris already say this week in the plenary that or in yesterday's Eyes on Tech, that we've relaunched Bad Science, so much more product science focus. And I encourage you to have a look on there if you have any special interest in the types of PRPs that we're working on at the moment. And I think that's me. Thank you very much.